Good morning. I'm on early again today. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. We're going to look at James chapter 3 this morning. Next week we'll have worship in Mabel. Today I'm still in Fargo for the Pride of Dakota show later on. But anyway, a brief look today at James chapter 3. And the beginning of this chapter talks about the untamable tongue, that little thing in there that can get us into all kinds of hot water. Sometimes with those that we love the most, but often with others in the community. But the very first words are, "My brothers, not many of you should become teachers." And I think about that, teachers, preachers, parents, anybody that is teaching, educating someone else, showing someone else how to do something. And because it's so easy to lead people astray. It's when we teach somebody something, we need to be cognizant, aware of the lasting implications of that. And it's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed over the different times having someone come to my wood shop and learn how to do something like on the lathe, or just to use a couple saws properly to make a little project of some sort. And because it's a lifelong skill, it's something that they can take with them and do forever. And again, with teaching, I think about my teachers I had in school, and in Sunday school, and in confirmation, and all of those that have blessed me and tried to influence my mind and my thinking and all of that, and what I've learned from them. And then I also remember some teachers that have asked questions that I thought, well, why in the world would we ever want to think about something like that? And why would we want to twist the story that much? And one of the examples I've thought about with that is that I didn't have this teacher, but a seminary professor asked some questions about a parable of Jesus. Now, this is a parable. It's a story that Jesus made up, yet he just he tried to bring things into it that would give this person realistic, real characteristics and twist the whole plot of the story. And this is the kind of teacher I think that we need to worry about and to watch out for. And this is the kind of teacher that James is warning about. Don't become that kind of teacher. I'm not so steady with the phone this morning. I'm holding it in my hand so it's wiggling some. But to be aware that when we teach somebody, even as a parent with our children, to be aware of what and how we teach them, and of the influence that we have on them. And I have a friend that's a teacher that says, my students should not know at all what my political views are, because I don't want to influence them that way. And one who is a teacher, a friend of mine, that has says, well, even my children don't know exactly my political beliefs. And to help them make up their own minds, to think, to look at both sides of this thing, and to get everything going that way. So be aware of what and who is watching you and learning from you. And we don't teach only by what we speak and by what we say, by how we act and by what we do. And and he says we all stumble in many ways. Our words aren't always pure, our thoughts aren't always pure, our actions aren't always pure, but we always stumble, and we need to be aware of that, and especially with people who are watching out for us. And I've been spending a little extra time with my grandson Tobias, and it's they're so easily influenced when they're that young, and just to be aware of those things. And then he starts to talk about this untamable tongue, and how the tongue is a little member and boasts of many things, and the tongue can get us into so much trouble. And he likens the tongue to the rudder on a ship that steers the ship, or just a tiny spark that can set a whole forest on fire. And when we say something, especially something that's hurtful to someone else, that can spread so fast and do so much damage. And it takes an awful lot for the tongue to repair the damage that has been made. You know, if you say something that's untrue about someone else, how hard is it to change that, to fix it? It's impossible to fix something, because once we have spoken a word, we can't swallow it back up and take it back into our bodies. It's there. You know, it's been heard. It doesn't matter what we try to do or what we try to say differently. It's there. In verse 8 he says, "No man, no person can tame the tongue. It is untruly evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men." You know, and it's true. This tongue, I mean, our whole body is that way. We can't blame just the tongue. You know, we read in another place, you know, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. If your tongue causes you to sin, quit talking, you know, and all of that. But the tongue is the one that, you know, can maybe and most easily do the most hurt and most damage. And, you know, it says, out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. And, you know, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. He says our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, our speech should be pure, but they're not. They're not always anyway. So we need to be aware of that. And he likens it to saying, can a fig tree bear olives? Nope. You know, it just can't happen. So it's just that reminder to be very aware, to be very just to know 100% of the time that what we say can really have a negative impact on someone, but also on the flip side, what we say can have such a positive influence. And so when we teach properly, when we encourage, when we say good job, that's a wonderful thing. You know, words can build up so well, but it takes an awful lot more words to build up than it does to cut down. So to be aware of what we say and how we say it and when we say it. Even, you know, that's so true too. When we say something can make a big difference. The last few verses of James chapter 3 talk about wisdom and the difference between heavenly wisdom and demonic wisdom. And verse 17 especially I like, it says, "The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy." Somewhat reminding me of the words of Galatians with the fruits of the Spirit, and other places where we hear Jesus talk about the good that is within us, and those things that, you know, the wisdom, the goodness that we do, the things that we do that bless and encourage others are some of the most important things in our lives, you know. And you know, verse 13 says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show his good conduct by his works, and that are done in meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-speaking sour hearts," you know, think about that. Do you have a sour heart? Or, this isn't very proper maybe, but who do you know that has a sour heart, that maybe needs some words of encouragement, that needs to help to be changed, to have, you know, a heart that is full of joy? You know, a sour heart could be someone that's hurting, someone that's mourning, someone that's bitter about something, someone that, you know, feels that, you know, God has forgotten them. Or, I mean, there are many different ways that somebody maybe get a sour heart, or what we'd say, you know, this bad attitude. And so what can we do to help that, to help them? You know, and he says wisdom of how to do things always, you know, this sour heart doesn't come from above, but it comes from the earthly, sensual, and demonic. And it's just another one of those reminders that the things of earth, the things of our hearts and our wills that are separated from God because of our sinful nature, don't come from God. They come from the evil desires, you know, and that's part of Satan working in and through us and in the world. And so that, you know, then this verse 17 comes after those talks of the demonic and what comes from heaven, what comes from above is pure. It's peaceable, gentle. I already read this. And so the very last verse of chapter 3, now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. And I think about that. I mean, wouldn't you much rather be one who makes peace than one who sows discord, one who encourages others rather than one who tears others down? And aren't those the kind of people that you'd rather be with? To be with someone who's encouraging, to be with someone who is upbeat and always looking on the bright side of things, and rather than to always looking at the negative. It's just like on a day like today. Right now I'm sitting in a nice warm house. The sun is shining, and I looked on the thermometer and it's 24 degrees outside. I could complain that it's 24 degrees outside. It's cold outside. But I have so many blessings. I have a nice warm place to be. I've got family to be with. I've got, there's so much to be more positive about than to look at the little negative that 24 degrees is. And the reality is that any person that looks on the bright side, that looks on the plus side, that doesn't get drugged down by the daily drudgeries. And there are daily drudgeries every day. We have challenges. In the middle of the summer, it's 90 degrees and high humidity, or even 80 degrees. And, we can complain about that. Well, rather than be a complainer about whatever the weather is, because we can't change the weather. It is what it is. So we look at the bright side, and we look at who we are, who our friends are, and what we have together. And most of all, to appreciate that we have a God who loves us, who cherishes us, who forgives us, and who provides a place for us, a promised place for us when we leave this world behind. So I think, these words of James 3, just like all of the words of the Bible, are so important to know and to hear and to take to heart. To be aware of who we are, of what we say, of how we say it, to be encouraging, and in all things and in all aspects of our lives. I don't know if it was on a daily devotion. No, it wasn't on a daily devotion this morning, but I read a deal that talked about a man and a woman who were celebrating many years of marriage, and she had a shoebox that she told her husband, never look in this shoebox. Finally, after many years, she decided, well, I'll share this with my husband. They open it up, and here there are 2 dolls that have been crocheted in there, and a slug of money. And he says, I don't understand. And she said, well, before we got married, my grandmother told me that any time I was angry with you, I should crochet a doll. And he thought, oh man, that's great. There's only 2 dolls in here. It's been a great life. And then he said, well, I understand there's just 2 dolls, but where did all the money come from? Well, that's from the dolls I sold. Ha! And so rather than, when she was angry with him, rather than let all of her feelings out, let all of her feelings flow, and it's not too good to always keep things in. We got to talk things out. We got to work things out and everything. So I don't 100% agree with just covering everything up. But the reality is that we find a way to work together. We find a way that we tame our tongues. We find a way to be gracious and loving and just show others through who we are that God works in and through us. On this day and always, may God richly bless you, and may you be a blessing to those around you.